matter. Attention, citizens of matter. Attention, citizens of matter. Attention, citizens of matter. Attention. Citizens of matter. Attention. I have come from the 17th dimension to here to tell you I broke the dissension and that my orders can never be questioned. Citizens of matter, I must have your attention. Citizens of matter, I must have your attention. You've gotten away with it for so long. My time will be strong. Now I must sing to the gathered throng. You pronounce the name of your town wrong. Citizens of matter, attention. Citizens of matter, attention. Citizens of matter, attention. Citizens of matter, attention.
Before I begin, it occurred to me that last week I completely omitted commentary regarding President Reagan's State of the Union address last Wednesday, presumably due to the never-ending cascade of Michael Jackson effluvia. So this week I have decided to give the historic speech the attention it deserves. Our top story tonight. From the Liar Liar Hair on Fire department comes the most shocking story of the 80s. The immolation of Michael Jackson last Friday night. Jackson, as old as his tongue and a little bit older than his teeth, was filming a commercial for Pepsi-Cola, previously best known as the soft drink best enjoyed in tiny plastic cups hidden behind boxes throughout the malls of America, with his Jackson 5 brothers, Jermaine, Jackie, Janet, Jesse, Tito, Hanukkah, and Ceausescu, when special effects logistics went awry and wrought havoc, discharging prematurely and enkindling the Jericho-treated hair of the Burn This Disco Out singer. High on the touching love of the children of the world which sustains him in his darkest hours, Jackson was unaware of his impromptu Heat Miser impersonation and continued performing for several moments, which allowed the blaze to give the glove that could tell you stories to one, an unasked-for tonsure that could be likened to a fairy ring, if one was so inclined. Fortunately, the inferno was extinguished, and Jackson was rushed to the hospital, which was immediately deluged with fans and phone calls. Jackson's scalp was treated, and he was sent home to recuperate, pending further reconstructive surgery. Thankfully, doctors have provided Jackson with as many sedatives and pain medications as he desires, which will alleviate his discomfort until they are no longer needed. We here at NF84 wish a speedy recovery to our national treasure and look forward to a future filled with many more albums even better than Thriller. John Margolis asks, is there anyone who can stop the runaway freight train of uninspiring mediocrity that is Walter Mondale? Unfortunately, the answer is yes. This portion of the news is brought to you by Crafty Beaver Home Centers. Be a winner in the winter game and get the jump on high energy costs by insulating your Pink Panther with our 6¼ inch and now more generous 8-inch rolls. Like the Crafty Beaver says, oh yes, right there. Oh yes, don't stop. The savings at Crafty Beaver. Now back to the show. With the release of Woody Allen's new film Broadway Danny Rose, critic Gene Siskel finds the cerebral comic at crossroads. On the one hand, he is highly attracted to his co-star, sister of dear Prudence Mia Farrow, but on the other hand,
Oy vey, der daughter of hers, she's such a schöne Mädel.
Senator Alan Cranston, the man best known for being sued by the publishers of Mein Kampf for putting out a more accurate English translation, was dealt a blow on Saturday when 2 of his supporters switched their endorsements to Captain of the Titanic Walter Mondale. When reached for comment, Senator Cranston said, "Wait, where on earth did I get 2 supporters?" Apparently, Jesus and Mary, fresh from an appearance at Bayside, will be apparitioning throughout California to deliver a message on how to prevent World War III. At first I thought this was an ad for the new The Jesus and Mary Chain tour, but then I remembered they haven't really gotten started yet. They won't even meet Alan McGee or Bobby Gillespie until this summer, and Upside Down won't come out until November. So I guess this must be the real Jesus and Mary. I wonder who's opening. Noted wrestling Lothario, Captain Lou Albino, has added another face to his stable. That, a former jobber, Cyndi Lauper, previously the best part of the Blue Angel faction. Lauper, whose gimmick is that of a fun-wanting girl who apparently covered herself in glue and rolled around the scrap pile in the back of a Filipino sweatshop, credits Rubber Band Man Albino with her recent mid-card success, although any mark could tell you it is cheap eat. Let's see if she'll be gushing when she gets the crowd to pop the hard way. Will she be a 60-minute man or a one-hit wonder? The only thing that will tell us is, time. After time? Oh, that was kind of a dusty finish, wasn't it? From the is you is or is you ain't the guy that beat Marilyn Monroe department, we have this declaration from the Daily News, followed on the next page by this disdeclaration. Where have you gone indeed? The Winter Games in Sarajevo haven't even begun, and already the US is behind in the medal count. None of the medal winners from the 1980 speed skating team will be competing, leaving only 4th place finisher Mike Woods, pictured here, to represent our nation in the upcoming events. Woods, an anesthesiologist, says, "I'm going into the Olympics as an underdog, which I like. Nobody is worrying about me." I say, what is the point of being an anesthetist if people aren't worried about you? I have a feeling Mr. Woods enjoys being an underdog because he likes to come from behind. And seen here shopping in the Turkish section of Sarajevo is US Olympic speed skater Mary Doctor, who, if she does not win a medal, can always fall back on her backup plan. Enact her name. Think about it. I just thought of something. What if she goes back to school and gets a PhD, and then weds one of her fellow students? The headline in the Madison Capital Times could read, Dr. Mary's Doctor. But wait, what if they both had the same name? Then it could be Dr. Mary's Dr. Mary Doctor. But wait, Well, it looks like the old Gipper is going to declare his intentions tonight. And you know what that means. White House butler Eugene Allen is going to have to take a screwdriver to the lid of the world's oldest jar of Vaseline and present it to our lovely First Lady for her bidecennial wifely duties. Dust off those cobwebs, Nancy. Tugboat Annie is sailing again. Ooh, ooh. After declaring his intentions, Reagan began his love-making session with a kiss on his wife's forehead, while the former Miss Davis grimaced, closed her eyes, and tried not to think about how no man ever since has measured up to Robert Stack, waiting patiently for Ronnie's eventual climax. Afterwards, for legal reasons related to their prenuptial agreement, she declared the decision was mutual. From the sublime to the ridiculous. I can't believe I even have to answer this question, Madeline. Let's play a hypothetical game called, oh, I don't know. What would you think? You're a woman, he's a man, he wants to have sex. You don't, you say no, and he forces you to have sex with him anyway. I don't know what the technical definition of rape is, but that seems like a pretty good one to me. Also, anyone who messes with Kathleen Quinlan had better stay off of DeWitt Avenue, if you know what I mean. Robert Rucker, of fluorescent misery, leapt for joy when he realized he had picked the winning Illinois lottery numbers and won a jackpot of over $2 million. His wife Anna also leapt for joy because she too had used the same set of numbers and won the jackpot as well. Upon hearing the news, Rucker, 45, gave his wife two black eyes, one for wasting $1 on the same numbers, and another for stealing his half of the prize money. When I first read this headline, in my head I heard, must protect baby does. Tried, I did. Well, not that easygoing apparently. Man who knows that true power comes from the bottom up, Ed Koch, made an appearance at the Greater New York Auto Show at the Coliseum over the weekend, where a kiss from penthouse pet Linda Kenton brought out the actor in the mayor. Is this what Paul Newman does all day? Asked Koch, visibly flushed, adding, I bet she has great areolas, right, fellows? I'd like to see her vagina, wouldn't you? This general slain makes plain Bas gains in Spain. Poor Jorge, yo la tengo. Man Nostradamus may have warned us about Ayatollah Khomeini, has vowed that the US will continue to be humiliated forever in the future. And all I can say is, stick it in your turban, friend. Nothing can humiliate the greatest country in the world. You hear me? Shit. From the fool me once, shame on you. Fool me. You can't get fooled again. Department comes the long-expected announcement from Methuselah's college roommate Ronald Reagan that he will indeed be running for a second term, something many thought not possible just one short year ago, saying there is still work to be done. Ugh. Quit the Gipper. Well? No, I still can't do it. I know some of my Democrat friends hoped that I would forget the whole thing, but I am determined not to do that until, about halfway through my second term. Jimmy Hoffa pen pal Yuri Andropov is at it again, this time responding vigorously to a letter and book from the president of an organization whose acronym I'm not going to look up, UNESCO, with a letter of his own, decrying U.S. imperialism and capitalist greed and decadence and yada yada yada. It's more of the same drivel he's been publishing for years, like Stephen King with all his magical Negroes. My only response to this letter is, speaking of books with words that no one will read, it's time for another segment of the show that can't take its eyes off the printed page. Never nude actress Raquel Welch has an upcoming exercise book and says, if Jane Fonda's book was Star Wars, I hope mine is The Empire Strikes Back. Well, that's quite a statement, and we here at NF84 have managed to get an advanced copy. So let's find out. But first, our story so far. Let's start with Miss Fonda. Ah, yes, who could forget these scenes? Very nice. Yes, yes. Oh, yes, the trench attack. Almost there, almost there. The trash compactor scene. Wait a minute, where are the buttocks? Oh, there they are. Oh, and who can forget these supporting characters? I want to know more of her story. She's like the Hathaway man of anaerobic workout books. Well, we can't spend all day looking at this book, although trust me, I have. Let's turn to Ms. Welch's effort and see how it holds up. Oh my. That's page 2? I have to go. Marge Proops returns, this time with a tale as old as. Time? I thought I caught that one. Apparently, a 14-year-old girl recently had her virginity taken by her 20-year-old stepbrother, who entered her room at night and demanded sex. At first, she protested, but during the act, began to actually enjoy herself. Afterwards, her brother threatened to tell her father it was all her idea if she didn't continue having liaisons with him. And now she doesn't know what to do. For my part, I have heard of dozens of movies with this exact premise, and they're all just as unbelievable as this letter. But supposing that this scenario did indeed happen, what is even more unbelievable is Miss Broop's answer to her problem. Is it to tell your father? To tell the police? No, it's to tell him you're going to lock your bedroom door and lock it. That should do it. He can't rape you if he can't get into your bed. Evidently, Miss Brooks is not familiar with the shower, the kitchen, the sofa in the living room, the back seat of their father's car, or any of the other dozen locations in which such scenes occur. So I have heard. In any event, another problem solved, courtesy of Marge Brooks. The once-to-be future King Prince Charles is the subject of the latest royal portrait, this time depicting him as the chief officer of the Gurkha Rifles. And I can't say I've ever seen a more ridiculous representation since Andy Warhol put Marilyn Monroe on a soup can. This picture is so awful. I hear if you stare at it long enough, it gives you cancer. The Colonel writes to Ann Landers that many in the U.S. Armed Forces are gay, despite being prohibited from serving, which makes this old Army recruiting poster make much more sense now. Listen, I don't know Arthur or Sullivan, or if those numbers are their ages or the number of girls rounded up in their cages. But Angie, please blink if you need help. PBS are debuting their newest series on Masterpiece Theatre tonight, a show that is being described as an Irish upstairs downstairs, which I guess will be called Upstairs Falling Down the Stairs. The story of a VA patient. Sounds potentially interesting. You know, on second thought, I haven't even started the latest Xanth novel, Dragon on a Pedestal, yet. I'd hate to fall behind. He puts them out so fast. Speaking of things I couldn't write a transitional joke for, it's time for another segment of the show that spells clue with an EW. First up tonight, we have police in Chicago on the hunt for a witness to the murder of Dr. Burton Isaacs, a Northfield dentist. Well, that's good to hear, but I hope they're seeking out more than just the murder witness. And congratulations to the police department of St. Louis for catching master criminal Lloyd Harvey, who told his wife that he was going to the Mississippi River and swim to the Illinois side on Monday night. The once and future Jeff Buckley wannabe had recently taken out a $100,000 life insurance policy, as well as written over $10,000 in bad checks, prompting his midnight February swim. For some reason deciding to do their job, the detectives searched the property and very shortly discovered Mr. Harvey hiding in his furnace, which is exactly the opposite of somewhere you'd think a victim of drowning would be. Having apprehended a criminal, the officers decided, screw it, let's go home, and arrested everyone in sight, threw them in lockup, and we'll let the prosecutors and lawyers figure it all out later. Well done, lads. Until the next time on What the Deuce. That's all this then. Of mustache twirler Vincent Price have written in to share his recipe for les coquelets à la moutarde. So, how does Vincent Price cook Cornish hens? Well, I'm not going to read all that shit, but I would be greatly disappointed if he doesn't cook them alive. Well, okay then. Just kidding. It's really a Florida boy who murdered his stepsister. But the real crime is this caption. Was that really necessary? I know that you all may find Mr. George's appearance to be très shocking, but I can guarantee you Robert Mitchum saw a half dozen boys who looked even better driving down Sunset Strip in his Alfa Romeo 6C 2500 Supersport after the premiere of Out of the Past in 1947. I don't know this NAIA organization, But when will people realize Jim Kimber must be stopped? Last night, because of his infernal machine, I dreamt I had climbed to the top of a tall mountain, but then I couldn't figure out how to get back down, and I fell. A judge in Boston has ordered actress and woman who's just not into you dude Jodie Foster to pay $500 for a minor charge of cocaine possession that was kept secret because of the usual death threats. Well, listen, Judge, you may find Jodie Foster, but I find Jodie Foster fine. Do you hear me, Jodie? Do you? A retired Air Force colonel was killed in a plane crash in Terre Haute, Indiana on Monday. It seems that some people just can't leave their jobs behind. When I retire, you won't catch me looking outside people's windows with an empty canister of paralyzing gas. From Ripley's Believe It or Not comes this tidbit about heavier-than-air musician Glenn Miller. Apparently, while a student at the University of Colorado, Miller failed his music course. Not only that, he also failed his audition for the Glenn Miller Orchestra. But pianist Chummy McGregor persuaded the other members to let him in, so they wouldn't have to change the name of the band. John J. O'Connor, the Bishop of Scranton, Pennsylvania, has been appointed Archbishop of New York by the Vatican this week. O'Connor, 64, plans to continue saying public mass and hearing confession, saying, "I'm a priest first. But I'll bet I know what he is second." Congratulations to Eyewitness News on Channel 7 for guaranteeing that every child who reads the funny papers will be able to see this full-page ad in the entertainment section. Well, if they weren't before. This portion of the news is brought to you by Legend Pharmacy, with dozens of locations throughout Greater New York offering you full personalized service. Like Dick Van Patten says, for a sweeter Valentine's Day, discover a legend. Have you ever heard the legend of Dick Van Patten? Well, it seems his wife curbed his vigorous love-making technique on the night of their honeymoon and said, "Eight is enough." And a substantial part of him has been left out in the cold ever since. Now back to the show. Nothing, it seems, can stop America from putting its troops in harm's way in places we don't care about for reasons no one seems to understand, to solve problems that do not have any solutions apart from one side completely annihilating the other. As evinced by President Reagan's insistence on keeping Marines in Beirut to prop up the unpopular government led by Amin Gemayel so that Lebanon doesn't fall to the coalition of PLO, Hezbollah, and Syrian forces which want to establish yet another Khomeiniist state in the Middle East. Have you got that? Well, Ronnie seems to have got it, because he has sworn to die on this hill, saying nothing, repeat nothing, will cause him to remove US troops from Lebanon. Not the bombing of the US Embassy, not the bombing of the Marine barracks, and certainly not the fact that not one person in America cares about Lebanon because they do not have any oil. This is all very bothering, but what bothers me the most is this Daily News swing and a miss headline. It was there the whole time. Talk about a Gil Hodges. You know, Zach Duncan seems to understand something about the definition of the word one that I do not. 1, 2. Speaking of the whole being less than the sum of the parts, it's time for another segment of the show about people who don't seem to know when to leave the party.
27, 1983, Gary Evan Hart and his girlfriend, Deanna Marie Slack, both 22, were hiking near Box Canyon in Simi Valley when Slack, who liked to collect flowers, instead found a set of bones, human bones. Screaming in terror, Slack fled the skeletal debris and found Hart, whereupon the two informed the authorities, who collected the remains. Days later, the bones were identified as belonging to 29-year-old Elaine Graham, a nurse from Sherman Oaks who had disappeared that St. Patrick's Day after dropping off her 2-year-old daughter at the babysitter's. Police discovered her empty, faded yellow Volkswagen Bug in a shopping mall a few days later. The only clue was the driver's seat being adjusted for a larger person. After finding the skeleton, Deanna Slack was deeply troubled. A believer in ghosts and extrasensory perception, Miss Slack came to feel a connection with the dead nurse, saying she felt the girl's fear. On January 28, 1984, Gary Hart was pulled over on the Antelope Valley Freeway by police for erratic driving. On the floor of the car, officers found Ms. Slack's body, a noose tied tightly around her neck. Hart claimed he had been drinking, and that while arguing, Ms. Slack threw playing cards, struck him in the legs with a wooden baton, and in a final outrage, threw a water bomb at him. The very drunk, very angry, and now very wet and stinky Hart throttled Slack, and in a panic, tied a noose around her neck in an effort to make it look as if she had hung herself. At his trial in 1985, he would be found guilty and receive a 6-year sentence for manslaughter. Although a potential suspect carrying a bloody knife had been arrested in an armed robbery attempt a month after Elaine Graham's murder, police were unable to connect him with enough evidence to press charges, and the case will go cold for 20 years. In 2003, due to developments in DNA analysis, Graham's blood will be linked to the blood found on the suspect's knife, and Edmund J. Marr is arrested and confesses to Graham's murder. He is sentenced to 16 years to life. The moral of the story: don't ever find a skeleton.
It's over, folks. The Nimrods, who have run Marvel into the ground since its glory days of the early 70s, have announced there is a new Spider-Man. A black one. Let me be perfectly clear. Spider-Man is Peter Parker from Queens. His girlfriend is Gwen Stacy, not that hair-swapped tenderoni Mary Jane Watson. Spider-Man is red and blue. He is not black. Why don't you just create a new superhero with a black costume instead of appropriating a character with a well-established canonical history of never being black costumed? I'll tell you why. It's because no one would buy it. Nobody wants to see a black superhero costume. It's clear that Marvel has been infested with liberal, politically correct communists who want to push their equal opportunity agenda. What's next? Will they suddenly make one of the X-Men gay? And speaking of characters who aren't black, what's with this new black Doctor Who? I don't know, Kay Gardella. You tell me. Wait, there are 9 kinds of cheese. Look at them all. I knew a girl named Brie once. She got married and fat. Not me. I just got fat. Good God. And I thought this endeavor was a waste of time. At least these videos will still be up in spring. You know, for a second there, I thought that said assemble. And I started to get nervous. At this point, if only he saw a big rise in American AIDS programs. It's like my catchphrase. And when it comes to AIDS, Ronald Reagan is like, what? Who? Where? Speaking of people who don't know where they are, it's time for another segment of the show that knows where to send these Dr. Bills. Apollo 15 and a two-gloved moonwalker Jim Irwin has announced plans yet again to scale Mount Ararat in Turkey in search of Noah's Ark, despite having fallen from the trail and huddling overnight under a rock in sub-zero temperatures on his last trip. Irwin, previously a professional philatelist and a born-again Christian, vowed to bring back proof of the existence of Noah, the man God chose to save after sending a flood to wipe out the wickedness of the rest of humanity, who then proceeded to get drunk and run around naked until his sons had to put Papa to bed again, bringing with him this time a film crew to document their expedition.
This may be the most incredible film you will ever see.
Well, that may be, but I bet I know how the movie doesn't end. You know, when I think about space, it blows my mind. I can hardly imagine what actually going there must do to your brain. Also in space news, the Giants have announced they are dropping out of the race for the moon, and thank the maker. As a kid, the idea of giants on the moon would have given me a boner, but as an adult, I realized the last thing we need is the Anderson Windows giant exposing himself to every young boy with a telescope. But by far the biggest story of the week is that of Challenger Flight STS-41B, scheduled for launch on Friday. 41? You know, the last one I remembered was STS-9. These shuttle flights have become so routine, I must have missed... hold on. 32. I've got to lay off the Jones pills. Where was I? Oh yes, the so-called Buck Rogers mission. First of all, you might want to be careful about using the word Buck around this crew. And second of all, you can put Whitey on the moon, but you can't put Blackie in the picture. There, you see, it's not so hard. Just try being a little more sensitive next time. The highlight of the mission will be several planned extravehicular excursions featuring the Manned Maneuvering Unit, a space-age jetpack, hence the name Buck Rogers. Although I watched every episode of the TV series, even the second season, which is 100% attributable to the power of Erin Grey and her outfits so tight I can see which way she dresses, and I don't remember any jetpacks. Maybe it's called the Buck Rogers mission because after takeoff they all fall asleep, which is what I do whenever the launch is actually on time. The launch at Cape Canaveral was a spectacular success, attended by an estimated 100,000 people and a like number of alligators. The shuttle's first operation was the launching of the Westar 6, a Hughes Aircraft Company-built telecommunications satellite commissioned by Western Union. Stop. A dismal failure. Stop. Satellite vanished. Stop. Investors panicked. Stop. Flanagan drinking again. Stop. What a world. Stop. Shown here is a picture of the Westar 6 as it left the shuttle's cargo bay. Americans, I swear, 80% of the country goes to work with a hangover the day after the Super Bowl, but 0% of the country understands Roman numerals. And here we see Ronald McNair at the moment he realized the multi-million-dollar satellite was lost, and he would be blamed for it. And moments later. If I were him, you couldn't get me back on that ship for $1 million. Tune in next week for the conclusion of Well, I can see you've never met my mother. What a piece of work she was. A maintenance man in Cleveland fell 80 feet down a service elevator shaft after using the restroom on the 5th floor. According to Ernest Mulholland, your life does indeed flash before your eyes. Said Mulholland, time slows down. I thought about everything from when I was a little boy all the way through school, adding, I only wish it had been a longer fall. I was just about to get my first hand job. This portion of the news is brought to you by Cross County Mall on Route 16 East, where every weekend is a big one. Come see the great organ grinder and his monkey this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Watch him grind his organ. Watch his monkey dance. Watch him spank his monkey when it behaves badly. Great fun for the kids. And adults, too. At Cross County Mall, we do it all for you. Now back to the show. The U.S. Senate approved a sweeping new crime bill this week, voting 91-1. What I want to know is, who is the idiot who voted against this bill? He must be new. Doesn't he realize this bill will prevent none of the crimes the senators are committing? He has nothing to worry about. Somebody should clue him in. The last thing they need is somebody who thinks he's a regular Mr. Smith. Tonight on Jim Will Fix It, a 14-year-old has her picture taken with pop star Marilyn. Well, that sounds fun. Let's take a look at this Marilyn Chantusi. Wait a moment. That's a man, baby. Will Jimmy Savile's crimes forever go unpunished? And finally tonight, speaking of Marilyn's former squat mate, publicity-shy gender bender for legal tender Boy George and his, girlfriend were detained in Nice by French immigration officials who refused to believe that a man who looks like a man wearing makeup with a passport that says George O'Dowd M was indeed a man. Come on in. You can't be that dull. You just wanted to watch him take off his pants with all that girly maquillage on. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you didn't have to detain him for 3 hours. You could have just asked him. I'm sure he does it all the time. And with that, you now have my permission, if you can, to look away.